feel like Kobe in the fourth quarter.
This is the Dane Moore NBA podcast. We're brought to you by Prize Picks, coming at you Saturday morning. It's December 7th. Happy birthday, Mom. And on today's show, we got Kyle Theige back with us after a little vacation. Kyle, we've got game one of this two-game set out here against the Warriors to talk about. It was the Wolves' fourth straight win. It was the fourth straight game. They held an opponent up to 92 points or less. Obviously, we'll talk about this Warriors game some too, but it's been maybe 2 weeks or something like that since we've done an episode. What's up? How are you doing? Let's go.
Let's not bury the lead. Happy fucking birthday to maybe the best mom in the business.
She loves the swear-lated Kyle.
She's you got some great kids and you're a great mom. No, it's been a what? We haven't done one of these in a couple of weeks. We did way too many of them during the dark days. But I was on vacation for a week, kept up with the games, didn't really keep up with all the other stuff online. But it's just been kind of.
I'm just gonna call that out as a lie every time. I'm gonna call that out as a lie.
Dude, I was gonna text you and be like, who's the coach of the team right now? Because I thought they fired Finch again. But no, it was interesting because it kind of reminded me like I was in Hawaii and like daylight savings and stuff.
Nice, tight.
Yeah, and it reminded me just of kind of like daylight savings in a way, where it was really dark after that Kings game. And I know we're going to talk about the Warriors win last night.
I like where this is going.
It was really dark and people were upset and they wanted changes and they wanted, I think smooth brains wanted to fire the coach again. And it reminded me of being when it gets dark at 4:30. Yeah. And I think Wolves fans that know ball have graduated now to this idea of like daylight savings. It's not going to be dark forever. Like it's going to get better. So yes, you were frustrated because you went out and it was 4:30 and it was dark, but I think real ones kind of realized that this was probably eventually going to come. And I think this is a great time to do a pod because yes, they won last night. Yes, it's 4 in a row. Yes, it's 4 straight games where they've held an opponent to 92 points or less, which hasn't happened in like a decade. But man, to me, it's all about, I don't even care about wins and losses. To me, it's all about the story of the 23-year-old who continues to not only find himself on the court, but as we learned over the last week and a half, has found himself off the court.
Yeah, no, I think so too. That was a weird part of the losing 7 of 9 games, right? That was the state of 2 and 7 stretch there before the now 4-game winning streak was that the Ant explosion that was the beginning of the season. The first couple of weeks had tamed, right? And he came out, he's shooting 1 million threes, right? That's a story. And he's making them at a crazy high clip. And those threes were kind of leading him to do other things too. And beginning of the season, right? He's just awesome offensively. And then the 9-game rough stretch there happens and teams just do what they do to the Wolves when they're like, we're going to let other people beat us, put 2 on Ant every single time, which, as we learned in the playoff series against Phoenix last season, is something he can handle if it still isn't something he prefers, right? And I don't want to go so far as to say that he prefers it. I think he'd rather like go get his. You know what I'm saying? Where I think he's starting to appreciate. Rudy said in the locker room last night after the game, he was like, I think Ant is starting to realize this is the ultimate sign of respect when teams are putting 2 or 3 guys on you every single time. And kind of learning how to play off of that. And Finch said too, is like what Ant is learning is that, you can still get 30 if you're patient about it, as he did last night when they're putting 2 on him the whole time. But the opportunities will come as other things sort of open up. And I think he learned something in the playoffs that he was like, okay, this isn't going to stop. Teams are going to try and take me away, take away my downhill game. That is obvious. What do I need to do to add to it? And we're in San Francisco, a lot more national media here, non-Minnesota media. So there's a lot of people asking about the 3, right? They're asking him about his shot. Like it's like half the questions in the post-game thing, which, I already heard that whole story a bunch of times. But I did ask him what kind of clicked with me was I was like, but why? Like, why the shot so much this summer when Ant was a really good 3-point shooter a season ago? I asked him about that after the game, which I think kind of helps like unravel a little bit of his psychology behind the shot, but also about why the shot is important, specifically against the way that teams are loading up against them. Here's Ant.
You talk about like working on your shot this summer. Like you weren't a good shooter coming into the year, right? Like you were a good shooter. What motivated you to try and push it to like another level?
Being able, I mean, you know, because like Chris had asked me about like the double teams. So like in order for me to be able to score without the ball, I got to be able to shoot. You know what I'm saying? Make him respect. So like if the ball gets swung, I got to be able to. And I text Steph about this maybe like 7-8 games ago. I sent him a voice message, and just being ready to shoot on the catch. You know, that makes you another threat on the offensive end, because like guys got to respect it now, because I want to catch and shoot. So now if you run me off the line, now I'm getting to where I really want to go, which is downhill. So that's all we work on, man, is catch and shoot, catch and shoot. So now if you respect my catch and shoot, then when I pump fake, you got to jump. So now I'm just playing off of instincts now.
How confident are you? Like, you know that you can feel when you make it or when you miss. Like, what's the percentage?
I think I'm gonna make that bitch every time. I'm not gonna lie. Every time that bitch leave my hand, cash.
You know what I like about that, Kyle, is it's good to hear that he still wants to get downhill. Like that he said, he's like that is what I want to get, because it was getting at the beginning of the season to be like, wait a minute, do you like this three now like a lot more than you like driving the basket where you're gonna get hit and floored and this and that? That's what's important in Ant, because this 3-point volume is like clearly not gonna go away. He's through slumps, continue to be like a 10 threes a game sort of guy. But it's kind of those two things playing in tandem off of each other. When he's a threat from both of those areas, then the defense is paying more attention to him, which makes him a playmaker, right? It wasn't just 30 last night. He also had 9 assists. I think 4 of those assists came in the fourth quarter when they really put him away. That was a full package game from Ant to me.
10th time in his career he's had 9 or more assists in a game. Yeah, and also too,
That should be higher.
This is just a moment, but you mentioned all the national reporters on the scene for an ESPN game. Really good to have local reporters. I've complained about this before, but good to have you there, Chris there, John there. Because I thought last night, again, it's a win, right? Are they back-to-back merchants? Like they've been beating up a lot of teams in California that have been playing on the second night of a back-to-back or whatever. Maybe. But the way they did it last night was really important. And again, it all kind of comes back to Ant, because, again, this is, if you pay money to go to a game or you carve out some time to watch a game, I get the micro version of just watching it, and like that is a big deal to you. But I said this to you in October. I keep coming back to the idea of, if this all somehow works out and lines up, it's going to lead to like one title. And it's going to be because of Anthony Edwards, and he's basically become like a 10 in all categories. And I just think the leadership stuff, again, I haven't been able to talk to you online for a week and a half, but the stuff that he did post-game, in the locker room, calling out his teammates, and then to slowly see them respond. Right. And then also, he's, as I said earlier, like that was figured out off the court. Well, then on the court too, I mean, there are very few coaches in the league who understand Anthony Edwards like more than Steve Kerr, just because of the pre-draft stuff or like Team USA and stuff. He knows the best ways to kind of, as Krasinski wrote for The Athletic this morning, kind of like egg them on and be like, hey, we want you to try to go at 2 of these guys. And I think 3 years ago, I mean, obviously rookie year Ant would have embraced that challenge and be like, okay, watch me get this shot off over 2 of you. But his shot's still there. His shot is getting better, whether it's reformed or he's just believing in it more. He told me in Portland, like, I never lose confidence in that bitch, just like you don't in reporting or whatever. But he has the shot, and there was a couple moments last night where before the double could even come, he just got a quick 3 off to kind of like, no, I'm not even going to let you trap me. I'm not even going to let you double me. But then when the double did really get him, especially on the sidelines or in the corner, he just made the right play every time. And I mean, 9 assists for the 10th time in his career. You go back and watch that game, he could have had 13. Like he's really become a well-rounded. I think the Devin Booker comp can be lazy sometimes, but when Booker had to kind of become not just a 3-level scorer, but like a 3-level player, I think Ant's kind of really figuring it all out. And when he is like that, I mean, that fourth quarter, man, I mean, we're back to the old Wolves, right? We'll talk about defense in a little bit, but we're also back to the old Wolves because they don't know how to close quarters. And they're down, or they're up 3, I think, at the start of the fourth. And Finch just a minute in was like, nope, we're not losing this. And you have to play the next 11 straight minutes. And he came in and just one by one, starting with the Mike Conley assist, just dissected what is still a really good defense, and they had no options for him.
Yeah, I asked him. I asked him about that as well too. I thought it was Ant's flurry in the fourth quarter. I thought it was important that it started with an assist to Mike in the corner. Play that clip.
You said you were excited to come in the fourth quarter and show something. Your first one when you found Mike in the corner there is part
of a dime.
Yeah, exactly. But part of it is like you're getting going with playmaking sometimes doing more.
I mean, people don't understand like how much I love to pass it to my teammates and then get a dunk or hit the shot. Because I mean, if I hit a shot, I'm super happy. So I know if they hit a shot, they super happy, and I'm super happy for them. I've always been like that, man. So I think that brings more joy than me scoring. Like my teammates getting this stuff off. So.
It opens up
exciting.
scoring too,
and it makes it easier for me. So now they can't help. I can go get a layup or shoot a pull up. So, it's fun.
So, I think an important part of the playmaking, Kyle, is Ant's playmaking in these situations when they're doubling and putting two on the ball is how his teammates position themselves, right? Like Ant is going to break that. It can break that in a variety of ways, but as the teammates, you need to present yourself in a position that, okay, they put two on Ant. Now, whenever you're one of the other four guys, you got to be thinking like they're putting two on Ant here. How do we play 4-on-3 in the backs behind that? Or how do we on the opposite side of the floor have somebody open, for a corner look? And that is about positioning. That's about awareness of the teammates. And I think, unsurprisingly, like Mike Conley has the highest basketball IQ on the team. And that stood out to me in the fourth quarter, right? We all can picture that play where Ant kind of play makes, was that zip pass, the dime to Mike in the corner, hits that three. You see Mike kind of going over there because Mike knows what's going to happen there. Okay, they're bringing the second guy up here. That's going to push Ant to go wide to the right. There's going to be an angle for him to find me in the corner for the three. He's done that a bunch. The biggest thing, and I think it's important to like distinguish between like what a double team is and what putting two on the ball is, because like double teams in the NBA like don't really happen unless it's in the post, right? Like where you just go and send a second guy. Two on the ball is like they're setting a screen and putting both of the guys involved in the action up onto the guy with the ball, right? And in that situation, that's what opens up the pocket pass, right? The short roll. We've seen Rudy be pretty good at that this year. He does this weird little elbow like kickouts to guys all over the floor. But also they use Mike Conley in that position. Remember in the first quarter? How was Mike Conley getting his couple of his first baskets? Do you remember this?
No, educate me.
Floater.
Oh, those little floaters. Yeah, right hand.
Yeah.
Two of them are right-handed, I think.
Yes. So what that is it's like, okay, Mike came and set screens for Ant because he knew they were putting two on the ball. And then Mike is just like, all right, I just got to get Ant a little bit of an advantage. Now I'm just going to short roll right here to the middle of the floor. There's two on the ball. So there's nobody at the nail. There's nobody at the free throw line there. Like I can catch there and the next guy's at the rim. So I got the floater there right away. And it's that sort of stuff. And those are Mike things. Like, of course, Mike has that stuff figured out. But there's more of that. There's more of like Rudy's awareness to stay wide in the dunker spot. Not just like the dunker spot right by the rim, but like almost to the corner and coming in. And we saw Rudy get a bunch of lobs from Ant there. This, it was very like eye roll, like, oh, it's a new roster. Guys are figuring out how to play together. That is a true thing, even with players who played on the same team as a season ago, because when the roster changes, everything sort of changes. And even Rudy needs to play with Ant differently than he did a season ago, regardless of who the power forward is. Mike has a different sort of role in a way when Ant has elevated into being something else different. And so when you want Ant to be a great scorer and a great playmaker, to me, yeah, it's about Ant learning that, which we know is happening, but so much of it is about his teammates understanding the positions that Ant can put them in to be an advantage. And I thought last night's game was a really good example of that. Obviously 9 assists, but particularly the fourth quarter. And that went on to then be one of the best, I think, fourth quarters that Ant has played in his career, but he can't do it. He can't do it without intelligent play from his teammates around him. And he got that in the fourth.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to the micro-macro thing. This is now, because of the Karl-Anthony Towns trade, all about Ant. I mean, it's a reason why people are writing a book about him at 23. He can't even rent a car in Hawaii. I learned that, by the way. You got to be 25. But it's not, that play you reference coming out of that about, it's like the 10:37 mark in the fourth, where Ant obviously drives baseline and finds Mike. If Mike doesn't have the basketball IQ, as you said, smartest player on the team, to get to that corner, like Ant is stuck, right? He's throwing a pick. However, on this same play, like I would credit everyone on the team. Like this is the play I want to reference too. Like he gets off it, gets it to Rudy. He wants it back. Rudy couldn't give it to him, so he gives it to Jaden. Then Jaden immediately goes and gets it back to Ant.
Yep.
So yes, Anthony Edwards, in the macro is becoming a great leader off the court and a great basketball player on it. But his teammates also need to like level up in their IQ. And I just thought, you got some of the smartest guys out there in terms of like Naz Reid and Rudy and Mike to just know, okay, if he's going to get off of this, I got to go help him out. And then I have to immediately go find space in whatever the coverage is. So it's a 5-man thing, right? Like, that whole play, which is kind of that and then the Naz Reid block, we should talk about that. Yeah. That was like a statement play for this team and kind of shedding of that old snake skin. But I think all 5 guys get credit on that play for how they all helped Ant out to get a really good shot late in the shot clock.
I like this part about we played for people listening on podcast, played the Mike in the corner one. And the next possession, then Ant draws the 4-point play, hits a 3, and I think Lindy Waters follows him. But watch Naz in this part of this play, and I think this is a distinct. He's in the game in the fourth quarter, and Julius Randle wasn't. The Naz part of making this decision quick is what makes this happen right here. Look at this Naz catch right away. Yep. Boom. And then Ant gets into it. He's got his. That's clean. If you hold that delays that entire action there. So that's just another thing, right? We talk about Mike in the corner, talk about Rudy in the dunker. We talk a lot for the other wing guys. It's just about being decisive and quick, and that's something Julius can do. It's something he can learn from Naz too. That's the biggest thing. If you want to play through Ant, you need to play fast and smart within the half court too. And when the bad Julius stuff happens, it's when you can you just feel the possession going a little bit slower. And sometimes they got to play through him, and I get that, and you do want to just let him get doubled in the post. But it's about everybody playing around him there, and the better they play around him, the more often you're going to get this 34-9 stat line from Ant in the way that he did.
And I know we want to go to a break, so this is not like the Julius Randle segment, but I would just say that when you compare Julius Randle and Naz Reid in all the different things, defense, offense, certain skill set, that is the single biggest thing that Naz just is light years ahead of Julius Randle in, is just knowing how he is the king of the 0.5 mentality on this team. And that play signals it right there. He helps Ant with no box score credit get a 4-point play just because 100%. He knows exactly what he's supposed to do. And that's something that I think Julius Randle, when you watch, is slowly getting better at and figuring out. He is new to a roster that has a lot of continuity. And I think if he continues to get better at it, but right now Naz is light years, shout out to Golden State, ahead of Julius in that skill set.
Take our first break here. Today's show is brought to you by Stone and Skillet. They're back for December, and for Christmas, we're hosting it at our place this year. And so, you kind of got to start doing all right, we got to make 3 meals. How are we going to, I've never cooked 3 meals in a day before. And so eggs Benedict, we always make eggs Benedict in my family on Christmas Day. And I was like, we're doing them this year with Stone and Skillet English muffins. Obviously, Kyle, we've, Stone and Skillet's been a long time sponsor of the pod. It's something you and I both keep at our house, in the morning. I'm out here in San Francisco, and I'm like, God, I need some sort of quick food right away, but that isn't just air. I really like Stone and Skillet. If you can, put some jam on it, butter, whatever, make sandwiches with it. It's just a much more substantial English muffin. It's available at Whole Foods. If you want to learn more about it, you can go to stoneandskillet.com. They'll tell you more about how there's 6 grams of protein in every English muffin, how they were started in Boston, and how it's non-GMO certified. But we love Stone and Skillet. We're excited to have them back for this December as a sponsor. So when you're at Whole Foods, just be like, okay, bread section, I'm gonna go try this. Dane and Kyle have been talking about this for a year and a half. Let's pick up some Stone and Skillet English muffins. Today's show is also brought to you by Treasure Island Resort and Casino. Kyle and I were there a few weeks ago doing a live show, and I've really been enjoying this year, Kyle, better understanding what TI is. I remember like when I was 18, like high school, I'd be like, oh, we're gonna go to the casino, and then honestly, I hadn't really been back to Treasure Island very many times, since college. And the biggest thing I've learned is there's always stuff going on there. We were talking to when you and I were there, we were talking to some of the people, on the like communications staff at Treasure Island, and there is legitimately like a show, an event, a giveaway, like every single day. It is, and it's cool. It's like an added little incentive, and it's not all related to gambling. If you're not a gambler, there's so much other stuff to do there, and particularly around like the holiday, they kind of know people are going to have some time off and some space maybe with family, or it can just kind of be a fun night. December 26th through 31st, they're having like live events every single night to kind of incentivize people to come down there, and then obviously a New Year's Eve party as well that's 80s themed. We'd love for you to consider Treasure Island for some sort of event with the family. This holiday season. For more information and a full list of Treasure Island's promotions, you can visit ticasino.com.
Hey, speaking of the holidays, I know we might want to talk about some defense and maybe a certain 6'10" lengthy player at some point, but I know it happened in garbage time, and I don't know if it tracks on cleaning the glass, but we can't talk about that last night's game without talking about a Christmas-like moment. And those two lobs to Rudy Gobert. Again, in garbage time, it's like a 15-point game. Draymond's out there, by the way. It's like they still had the heart of their defense, but that is really, truly something that, again, yes, late in the game, but that's something that still has not, despite Ant becoming an amazing leader and an all-around scorer and the face of a franchise, that thing, I mean, you talked about it with Britt earlier this week, right? He hasn't really ever found that dynamic chemistry with the big guy. Sure. And it was a small sample size last night, but those two lobs gave me almost as more hope than any of the other playmaking stuff, because that is a weapon that come playoff time, I mean, they just never had it, right? And I know Rudy was obviously amped about it, but those little touch pass lobs that Ant had to Rudy Gobert last night were incredible to watch.
I think the only person who liked it more than you was Rudy Gobert himself. I got that clip too.
Team's gonna really have to ask themselves if it's good to put two or three guys on it.
He's really finding you on some lobs more so now too. How's that kind of coming along?
Amazing. Amazing. You got 2 in a row. Yeah. I thought it was Christmas, man. It's in a few weeks, but no, that was the second one. I was in the air for a long time.
Like a week or something.
I was surprised. Yeah. But no, that's amazing. I mean, we've been working on it, and him being able to recognize that shows his growth, and once again, when he's able to throw those passes, it's a nightmare for the defense.
You know what, Al? Like we talked about during the Randle Gobert debacle in Toronto, like the whole like need to give it to Rudy in the post. Sometimes when he's got a small sealed on him, to keep him engaged, keep him happy for the defensive side of the floor. You know what you can do instead of that? Throw him lobs. Like he doesn't need. Rudy's not like, I need post up touches. Rudy wants the ball under the basket sometimes when he's in an advantage situation, and he's like that. Oftentimes, whenever Ant is like going down to the basket, or Mike is too, like I don't know. I'm not in the camp of like really believing even on the Rudy duck-ins, even when it's a small on, I'm right there. Like, okay, like sometimes sure. But man, like this is the part of the dominant Rudy offense from the Utah days that is missing. It's not his fault. He can't throw a lob to himself. There's a reason Rudy Gobert's field goal percentage in his Minnesota time is lower than it was in Utah. It's because they designed the offense to give him dunks. And in Minnesota, it's more so, Rudy around the basket, hopefully dunks, but a lot of times layups, which do not go in as often as dunks. I think that's part of this too. You want this excellent stretch of defense that Rudy's been playing for the last 4 or 5 games to sustain. Keep finding him in this way underneath the basket, and it'll be Christmas all year long.
And they're not just, I don't know if you've ever thrown, I've never dunked, surprise, surprise. But if you've ever like thrown lobs at the gym, someone, you're like really standing there and you're like, okay, like trying to get the perfect touch on it. It's not those types of lobs, you know, like in the All-Star game, it was just spur of the moment. And to something you said earlier, it's Ant reading the coverages, right? Using the threat of that jumper that is really dangerous now, but now he gets downhill. And then both of those lobs were just like kind of touch pass moments for him that, again, it makes like right there, just a little flick. It has to be perfect timing. You've seen Dante be able to really do that. Nikhil a little bit. Mike is obviously the best, but yeah, man, I mean, Ant, like he speaks French now. And the best way to get Rudy the ball, I mean, it's kind of crazy, right? Because like these are two-hand dunks by Rudy that Dane's showing on YouTube, but how many times have you seen Rudy like catch a crazy one-hander, Justin Jefferson style, and dunk it? And it's like, wait, so you can do that, but you can't catch like an underhand pass of a tennis ball? It's wild. The best way to get Rudy the ball, and I think Jim Pete told us this once, is like big guys typically do love to get the ball up high, right? It's just there's less commotion up there. So again, I know we're talking about two plays that happened with 3 minutes left and they're up 20, but that is like a put a pin in it moment because those should happen in the second quarter. Those should happen, 3 minutes into the third. And if that little wrinkle on top of everything else we just talked about for 25 minutes is added to the total package here, and that's all basketball. The psychological stuff of like feeding the big guy who is the core of the defense and does get a little moody and want to touch the ball every now and then. If he can also do that, I mean, that is just the full picture of what this is supposed to look like.
Let's move over to the defensive side of the ball, and we can talk about it specific to the Warriors game. But it's really been an extended stretch, this winning streak, where the Wolves have been guarding, and as Ant put it after the game, everyone's guarding, and that seems to be as important as any scheme, anything to this. Is everyone committed to it? He kind of poked some fun at Julius Randle and Naz Reid with this answer after the game.
Everyone is guarding at a high level, but Jaden and Rudy is being the anchors that we need in the defense. I think that's the main. Like Naz and Julius is fucking playing defense. I've never seen them play defense before, so that's fucking incredible. And he's right here. Put the camera on him. He's just guarding his ass off. But yeah, man, everybody's guarding, and the two guys that we need to, lead us on the defensive end has been doing that night in and night out for the last month, I would say. So it's fun.
Kyle, I mean, what have you made of this more collective? I wouldn't say everyone's always guarding, but it's definitely more than it was kind of pre-Thanksgiving when they were in this rut.
The defense is what's going to win them games, and ultimately that's their identity, right? Like they were 10 games in, right, when you were out here in Portland, and we talked to Finch, and he said the next 10 games we want to find our identity. Yeah, and those 10 games got tough. But coming out of it at about the 20-game mark, you're like, oh, there's a glimpse of that defense. And then this 4-game winning streak is all because of that defense. And you can talk about anything you want basketball-wise. Again, I'm going to keep hammering this home because this is my favorite thing. It's about the leadership. I mean, Anthony Edwards literally called out Julius Randle last night and said, Julius doesn't play defense. I've never seen him play defense. Julius Randle is like almost 30 and been an all NBA guy and an all-star and like has been in the league longer than Ant. And he's kind of like, little brothering to Anthony Edwards, but Ant does it in a way that is like fun and, pumping his tires, being like, those motherfuckers are playing defense. I've never seen this is crazy. When they do that, we're unstoppable. So I just think he gets it, but then on the court, there's a moment in the Clippers game, and someone should go find this, but I think they're up 30 again too. That's been the theme. But they're like Ant gets switched on to I think Zubac a little bit, and then like as the low man. But then him and Julius are like on the baseline. But Julius has a foot in the paint, and Ant's like pointing to him like, "Yo, get out of the paint!" Like defensive 3 seconds and stuff. These little things that the 23-year-old is teaching the 29-year-old. But big picture, to get Julius and Naz to buy in to a defense that has the anchors, as Ant said, in Rudy and Jaden, and that Ant, when he wants to, can be one of those anchors in all defense. It's big because even though the offense has gotten a little better, right? Or you're starting to see some things. Guys are starting to fill more roles. Dante's coming alive a little bit. The identity of this team, no matter who is on it, again, is going to be defense as long as Rudy Gobert is here. Yeah. And you can't have, to the 900th time, the 300 type defense with a goat path. And Julius Randle and Naz Reid, to a little bit, have been a goat path. And if they can clear that up, man, I mean, that's why, I don't know what they wake up this morning, but top 2 or 3 defense in the league again.
Did you see the clip I posted about Naz Reid, the low man insurance policy? You see that?
Hilarious. A lot of great quotes last night. Show up to local media.
I'm gonna play that quote because it's related to what you're talking.
You call it low man insurance?
Yeah, low man insurance policy. That's what ET calls it. So it's like kind of stuck in my head.
Just get over there. Is that, yeah.
Yep. Everything's insurance. You know, second side, whoever is help is the insurance.
So that didn't happen at the beginning of the year. That was not what happened defensively. They had
insurance is expensive. Okay,
yes.
Sometimes you just don't want it.
Yeah, and we've talked about how the low man presence wasn't there, and just like briefly again, like what that is, and then I think people will be able to picture how it wasn't there before, and how Naz is a good example of how it has been. So pick and roll, right? And the Wolves don't want Rudy to sit back if his guy's been pulled up into a pick and roll, right? So Rudy has to come up. So Rudy is no longer the rim protector. So it's the responsibility of the other big to rotate over to the rim to become the rim protector as the low man. That was a disaster. That was it, like Toronto, like total mess. And that wasn't all Julius Randle. Like Naz wasn't good at the beginning of the year either. And it was particularly bad when it was Naz and Julius in there as the bigs. That's the most Naz Reid thing ever, where it's like, we suck at this. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to make it fun that we're doing it this way, and we're going to win because of it. And I'm not saying like Naz is like some, 100% basketball IQ guy, but that's where this team was bleeding, and it killed everything. Again, like the Toronto game, Rudy, they told Rudy, we're up blitzing, right? And Naz and Julius, particularly Julius, was not there in that Toronto game. And Rudy's just slowly getting pissed about it. He's like, Finch, you're telling me to come up. Finch, you're telling me to come up. Like the other guy has to rotate down there. And Julius didn't. So in the fourth quarter, when Julius didn't throw him the ball, that I think is what Rudy took out his frustration on in that play. It's this stuff. And that's all you got to do is you just got to feel it a couple times. You got to understand it a little bit. And the great thing about Naz doing it consistently is you can put it on the film. For Julius, it's like, hey, you just got to go. You just got to go. Be there. You're the low man insurance policy. We'd rather have you be there because somebody's going to X out to your guy in the corner. And that's something they got to get a little bit better on, because sometimes like Julius does come over there and then the other guy's kind of between, and then Julius guy gets an open three. Like, right? Picture that. That's happened way too many times this season. Well, that's not Julius's job. If he is the low man, it is not his job for his guy there too. If he says, I'm going, somebody else is over there. And there's a little bit building here defensively that makes me start to believe in this defense being elite again. I do think we got to see a little bit more, but like the breadcrumbs of having one of the best defenses is again there, because why that defense was elite a season ago was not just because of Rudy Gobert. It was because everybody in the rotation guarded last season. And as Ant said, everyone is guarding. And if that's true, this is going to be a good defensive team.
And it's a lot easier to say this when you're on a 4-game winning streak than when it is on. I mean, I literally went on vacation because I don't have nothing else to talk about. The team sucks. But it is, pettiness aside, we said after the trade happened, which was a crazy trade, and it happened 2 days before media day and all this shit, like, hey, it's probably going to take like 20 games. And those are 20 tough games and all that stuff, but it's just the reason I continue to ride for a guy who might not always be the best coach in late game situations, or always like, they're just figuring it out, man. Like, if you're not built, we always say this about the players. It's a marathon. These seasons are so long, right? Like, we're doing a pod on the 7th of December. We still got possibly 6 more months of this shit. It's a long season for us, let alone the guys that are on the court. But like, it does take them some time to figure it out. And I think Julius Randle, there was a lot of red flags last night again, but these little microcosm defensive situations, and Naz too, who is such a bright and fun figure, especially on the offensive end, like they're both kind of figuring it out. And I think all they have to do is be average, right? Because they do have 2, sometimes 3, hell, Nikhil 4. Like, they have so many potential all defensive players on the team. You don't need 5, as you said it to Chris. Like, you don't need 5 Darrelle Revises, but can you just have your Darrelle Revis, you have your shutdown corners. Can you just have other guys that can hold their own? And that's all they really need from Julius and Nas. And I think that's maybe been one of the biggest takeaways over the last week. Again, yes, 4 in a row, mostly against teams that are huffing and puffing their way into the second night of a back-to-back. But I don't really care about that because defense is totally different than like defense you can bring every night against whoever you play, even Pat Spencer, who blew my mind. I don't know if you knew that guy. Am I even saying that right? A Creta player. Rugby player at Northwestern.
No. Lacrosse, man. He was
lacrosse.
Like the best lacrosse player ever. Went to the NBA.
Well, he's a 29-year-old second-year player, and he blew everyone's brain. But yeah, he that's all you need from Julius and Nas. Nas is more of you just got to do it. I mean, you've been here. You're the longest tenured Timberwolf. Like Nas, you just got to do it a little more. Whereas Julius and
that's
Dante,
good leadership.
Too, you got to buy in. But I mean, I thought the Ant late shot clock assist to Mike was a really awesome play on the offensive end and like a thing you'll remember from that game. And I don't know if you have the clip, like the Nas Reed block on Draymond, which then led to a fast break and Nikhil hits a 3. That was, to me, the defensive play of the game in a game that had a lot of good defensive moments. Nas comes out of nowhere to protect the rim because, as you said earlier this week, like, hey, Nas, you kind of just, I know you're not built like it anymore, man, but you got to be the backup center.
Yeah, it's like it's got to be a rewiring to go back to it. And we can like debate whether or not that's his best defensive position. But the reality of the situation, which I think has become clear to Nas, is like, this is your defensive role.
You got to protect the rim.
Yeah. I mean, there's going to be 15 minutes a game where Rudy's not out there. Right. And then it's on him and Julius to be the bigs, the defensive bigs to not just defend the rim, but rebound. And Julius isn't a rim protector in that sort of way. I think we want to see Julius, and we've seen some of this, be a better rebounder, be a physical wall sort of guy, defensively. But those two, we've been talking about that, and honestly, it's been the biggest fly in the ointment, I think, of the entire season is like, what the hell are they going to do during the Reid and Randle minutes? Well, what's started to happen is Nas Reid is starting to act like a center, and he has 10 blocks over the last 5 games. It's not the perfect representation of of defense, but I think in this. I mean, of those 10, like, are 7 of them like capital B blocks, like transition coming out, like real meaningful, impactful defensive possessions from Nas. And I think he's starting to get like, this is last year for some reason my role was to be like a 3, and I always say guard Kevin Huerter because that would be like his assignment. Go chase the shooter. Well, it's not that anymore. And I'm glad I said this a couple weeks ago, or a week ago or something like that. It does make sense that Nas would get progressively better at center over time for this exact reason that he wasn't doing it for the 100 games prior to this season starting. So that's one that's really moving in the right direction. Let's move over to McDaniels while we're still on. I had the defense.
That would be great.
You want to start that? Or do you want me to play the clip?
Set us up.
Okay. We have Ant on Jaden here talking about last night.
What Steph is to guard and stuff. See what Jaden was able to do to him tonight. Like, how does he bother him?
That's Jaden McDaniels, man. To me, he's the best perimeter defender in the NBA, hands down. That's all I can say. He makes it tough on everybody. If you ask me, in practice, he makes it tough on me. So I know what he do to other people. So I feel bad for him.
I think Jaden's been playing really good defense for the last couple of weeks. I thought he even started guarding pretty well during the bad stretch. I do think this is like one of those situations where we get ourselves in trouble sometimes by looking at lineup data. And I don't say this at all to take away from Nikhil defensively, because I think Nikhil's been excellent defensively, but there's kind of become this like, I feel like at least like people have been creating a little bit of a delta between like Nikhil and Jaden and how they're guarding the season. And I think some of that is because Nikhil's numbers, like net rating, defensive rating wise, are so incredible. And Jaden's are not. But Jaden also plays probably the majority of his minutes, certainly a lot more than N'Keal does with the starting five, and specifically Julius Randle, who has been, I mean, and it's been Jaden and Julius like that. Those have been the ones that the efficiency numbers have been lowest on when the two of them are out there together. But to me, and I went back and actually like watched a couple days ago, just ripped through like some of the Synergy McDaniels defensive clips, and I'm like, okay, this has been there for a while, and just because it isn't totally being represented in defensive rating is a 5-player stat, and N'Keal has an awesome defensive rating because he has an incredible synergy defensively with Dante DiVincenzo and Naz Reid. That trio is playing really well. Jaden, Julius, and Ant don't have that at all. Like a defensive synergy. So those numbers are down. But I just think it's worth noting that McDaniels, I think, has been playing a more engaged, and Finch has been saying this effective brand of perimeter defense, even kind of before the win streak. And I think then you look at just the last two games. We go to James Harden, yes, back-to-back, all that stuff. Harden totally mailed that game in. But Harden was 1 for 10 from the field in that game, largely guarded by Jaden McDaniels. Not like Steph had a terrible game. He was clearly the most helpful Warriors player last night, but it was like 6 of 17, I think he was. 3 of 9 from 3. Jaden is guarding him, making it difficult, And this is, at least these last two games, seeing his impact and how it kind of detracts the production of the opposing team sort of main guy, like that stuff's back. That stuff's back with Jaden. I know you know that.
Yeah, you're right. I know that. Last night, just watching him run around because Steph is still, even at an older age, I could just watch a game on mute where I just watch Steph move off ball. Yeah. I mean, it is so, everyone to their deathbed will remember Steph Curry as the greatest shooter of all time, but don't forget that man just moves without the ball in a way that is, I think Ants learned a little bit from that. But watching Jaden last night and all this stuff, it kind of reminded me of how we didn't really always, like, Rudy Gobert can play such amazing defense, but have a limited box score. But like, we coined the term neverminds. Like, that's not a real NBA stat. I just thought Jaden last night was incredible again. And when people want to point out all the fouls and stuff, I know Jaden had kind of a funny quote about that last night, but in this 4-game winning streak, he's averaging 1 foul a game. Oh, yeah. Like, he has 4 fouls in 4 games. Wow. And he's still playing on average of like 27 minutes a game. So, yeah, he's kind of back. And to Ant's point, I think Jaden has some Julius in him where he gets in his own head, and it's tough for Finch to always navigate those things. But he is, when he's at his best, the best perimeter defender in the league, or one of the best defenders in the league. And to your original point, I think this is what gets lost a little bit. I think Jaden and N'Keal are apples and hand grenades. I know we don't talk about positions too much anymore, but like N'Keal to me is just a guard and Jaden is a forward. So like when Jaden's struggling, it's not like, hey, just plug N'Keal in. Like, they guard differently. Like, you had a clip earlier this week where Jaden's protecting the rim. That's not what N'Keal can do. Yeah, Jaden's the second best rim protector on the league, despite all the blocks that Naz has. On the team. On the team. Maybe in the league. So no, I think, and that's big though, because, offensively it comes and goes. He hit a couple threes last night. As Britt pointed out, I think he just shoots a higher clip when Ant passes him the ball than anyone else. But those 2 early threes kind of got him going. Offensively, it's always probably going to be these 10-4 in 2 games. But if he's back to just playing all NBA level defense, there's only 10 guys that make all defensive teams in the first and second team. If he just continues to be one of those 10 guys, the contract and the raise and all that stuff, like that, just, you're paying for it in and of itself. Because if your identity is defense, you need to have more than just one superb defender out there. Mm-hmm. And I think that's been not the reason that they've won 4 in a row, but man, even if Harden mailed it in that night, man, like he gave him hell. And last night, again, you're never going to shut down Steph Curry. They said this on the broadcast. Like, it's not about getting interceptions sometimes. It's about forcing difficult throws. And I think Jaden is really good at forcing difficult throws.
I think I don't think it's like the defense makes the offense better or the offense makes the defense better. I think it's both. Like, it can go both ways with him. Probably more so like if he's if he's feeling confidence and play to the Brit point, like when Ant is passing him the ball, he it seems like he more confidently shoots it. I think he more confidently shoots it when it's a scripted play set. I think he more confidently shoots it when he's not in foul trouble. There's an element of Jaden that is emotionally tied, right? And there is, his effectiveness vacillates on kind of that emotion, I think. And so it is about putting him in those situations to play a confident brand of basketball, and to steer him away or take him out of the game when he isn't, and be able to do it. Because he, as Finch would say all the time last season, he's the barometer of the offense too. When you get, like, I think it was no coincidence, it's going to be a night where he's guarding Steph Curry. Remember the first play of the game? It was like it's like Jaden's on the right wing. Rudy comes over to the right block. And I'm like, what the hell are they really posting Rudy up for? Just a straight post up on Kevon Looney in the first play of the game. But what it was, okay, so Mike's top of the key, Jaden's right wing, Rudy's right block. And Jaden enters to Rudy in the post. Mike comes over, sets a screen for Jaden. Jaden curls around it for Rudy to find him on a cut right there to the basket. Jaden missed the shot. But there's a reason they run that play right there for Jaden. It's like they want him to get that first bucket, that first fish, and maybe even just the first, like, the touch there. So as to, kind of be able to have an energy that goes over to the other side of the floor. That worked. I think that stuff's just important with Jaden McDaniels if you want him to be the weapon that he can be defensively.
Yeah, and the worst thing, I feel confident saying this, but the worst thing you can do with him is just make him stand around the perimeter and just shoot threes. Because I had a moment there where I was like, man, is he maybe never going to be a shooter? And that's TBD still. But I think of this play where he attacked baseline late in the shot clock, found Rudy for one of those push shots. Jaden has some real good playmaking skill that he rarely gets to tap into, but that was big. And then he hit that floater over Draymond, again, late in the shot clock. If Jaden's getting the ball, it's either on designed plays for him, like you just pointed out early in the game, or a lot of times like hand grenades with 5 seconds left.
Yeah.
And I think for the most part, he's been pretty good with those. So, yeah, he blows the layup. Obviously you want him to finish that, but I think that was an example of process over results, just to get him moving, get him attacking, get the whole flow of the offense moving. And they need more of that. I really do. I am a huge Chris Finch fan, and I think there have been real moments this year where his coaching staff has struggled. And I think some of that's been rotations and playing the young guys, but also just forcing more of our favorite term, structure, into this stuff. And if more plays are going to lead to more movement and better results, then hell, run more plays. And that was a really good one to kick the game off last night, even though he missed it, because I think it just got him moving and not just standing around.
The bridge to more structure is Mike Conley on this team.
Yeah.
They need a point guard to be able to run structured plays. The other guys can't do it. Nobody else on the team can. Maybe Rob Dillingham, but nobody else that's in the rotation right now.
Healthy.
That is
right.
Yeah, that's becoming clear. And I think, like, you joke, like, our favorite term, structure, because we've been talking about every single time the Wolves have had a prolonged bad stretch of basketball, we've got on here and been like, need more play sets, need more structure to get the offense going, because yes, I know you want to find the flow and find a higher ceiling to your offense, but it's a pretty consistently effective button to push to just run structured play sets that include Rudy as a screener on or away from the ball, right? Like, Rudy can just create advantages for you in a structured play set, and Mike is what really gets them there. And I don't know, I didn't just kind of like scroll on Twitter and stuff after the game. I don't feel like Mike Conley's game got a lot of. There's a lot of other good stuff that happened in that game, but I thought Mike's presence in that game made it feel like a game that they were in control the whole way, pretty much. And the only times it felt like they weren't was when Mike was off the floor and it's Nickeil or Dante bringing the ball up to be point guard in those times, and Gary Payton is guarding him, and either it's a turnover or it just kind of flusters them into their offense. And then Finch started being like, okay, Nickeil fumbled this one coming up, Mike into the game, got him back in there. And the Nickeil and Dante minutes have been awesome this season when they're playing together. defensively and kind of overall if they aren't getting pressured bringing it up the floor. But I guarantee you this is going to be in the scout, man. I mean, you said this like a month ago of like, I just whenever Nikhil's bringing the ball up, I think it was Portland. It's like Portland's just picking them up full court. They're going to start doing that all the time. And it's just not really in Dante and Nikhil's skill set, it appears, that they can handle that consistently. So Mike is an antidote to that by getting him in the game. But Mike plays like 26, 28 minutes a night. What are they going to do if there's a game where they pick that up full court the whole time and need that point guard play, that structure, that control? They need that in the non-Mike minutes, and that's going to be a little bit of the adventure. That's a little bit of the case for more. That's a lot of the case for more Rob Dillingham to be able to handle that. Now, obviously, I'm not trying to do a whole nother Dillingham sort of conversation, but it's an interesting thing here in that, like, and I think where Finch is at with it right now is, yeah, Nikhil and Dante are going to mess up a couple of these a game. But what we're getting from them from the other 60 possessions they're in is really productive play overall. But it does feel like as this is scouted more, they're going to need Mike more to run more structure, and they're going to need somebody else to do it. As well, whether that's Rob Dillingham, Ant, something. It's really important for this group, I think, to play offense in a structured and in controlled way when they're in a half court setting. And Mike is, the bridge to that.
Kyle, turn the TikTok camera on. It's why Rob Dillingham has to be part of the rotation when he comes back. And again, we're not doing the Rob Dillingham conversation. We're just trying to get some clicks on TikTok. But because he's the only other guy on the team outside of Mike, and then obviously Ant, but I don't want Ant to have more of a burden that can, I mean, Nikhil and Dante, it happened in Portland, and I was watching it, and it seemed so dramatic, but it was actually Spo who kind of figured it out in that Miami Heat game, that those guys just don't bring the ball up in a way that Mike does, because I don't think they're real point guards. And I think, I got to ask Jim about this, but like real point guards can be pressured bringing the ball up without getting sped up. You use that term when you're out here, getting sped up. Nikhil and Dante, when picked up full court, get sped up. Mike does not, even though he's much older and slower. He just is a real point guard. He is a floor general. That's why I think Rob, that's one of the skills that Rob already has, despite all the things that Rob needs to work on. He's a rookie. He's 19. Yeah. But when he comes back, like when Rob gets picked up full court, it's really hard because he's got possibly the best handle on the team, but he doesn't get sped up. And
he's not scared of it, man. Remember the Kings game when he played a lot in that Kings game, and Davion Mitchell was picking him up and was playing into the ball.
Embraced it.
And it's not even he embraced it. Rob was just like, I've seen this before,
right?
At different levels. Like that was not Rob Dillingham's first time where some team was like, we're just gonna put this bulldog on you, and he's just like, and he has the handle and the confidence. He just has thousands more reps against that than I think or at least more recent reps. I know Nikhil kind of came up as like as a point guard, and I'm sure in ways Dante's initiated plenty in his career, whatever. But that's the only way Rob's ever played. And it's the only way he's played for the past couple of seasons. I think particularly for Nikhil, who has really morphed and ascended because he's no longer a point guard. Like, and he is, he's the perimeter defender, the 3-point shooter, and is kind of evolving outside of that. But it's like explicitly as a 2 is or 3 that Nikhil is doing it. Rob is more comfortable with that. And whoever it is. And I've thrown out too of like, just not Nikhil and Dante doing that. If you want to maintain that control and you don't want things to get a little wonky for, a 6-minute stretch when Conley is out there, it can be Julius Randle walking it up like Kyle Anderson used to. Remember that? Yeah. And I'm always a little bit confused why Ant doesn't take that a little bit more. Ant will go get it the next possession kind of after Dante or Nikhil mess it up. I just think they got to be in many ways like a game manager offense. In those situations, like let it fly, let it go, play when you got Mike or Rob out there, but they do need a little bit more control.
But I was pandering to Dillingham fans, but the bigger pictures and what you brought up, what are we learning now as the team is 12-10? Like, what are we learning into the second chapter of this season? And that their identity is still defense. They have a lot of talent, really deep. They have a really good coach. But also that Mike Conley there's an argument, maybe not the argument, but there's an argument to be made. He's as important on this team as anyone who's not named Anthony Edwards. And this team, despite all the growth and the leadership and all the stuff they're figuring out and everyone's moving as one, they still need a floor general for 48 minutes. And Mike is the best one on the team to do it. Rob is half his age, but I think Rob might be in that specific role the second best at it. But Mike Conley last night, who finishes, 13, 4 and 3 steals, not like blowing you away. He controlled that game for all 27 minutes that he was out there.
Yeah, I thought maybe the box score doesn't blow you away. I was consistently putting in my notes, Mike. Like it just
Mike?
Yeah, in these situations where they needed more control or the honestly, Mike going to the corner on that first play once Ant checked into the game, I think is that little thing right there, and knowing how Ant's going to move with it. That's so big. It's a lot of these little things with Mike Conley, and I just think so much of the rough start to the season was on Mike for being rough and not confident and not effectively acclimated to this. He is now, and I think Mike Conley being effective is as big as anything we've talked about at any time over this 4-game winning streak or in this window that we're in where the season seems to be turning. I think Mike Conley is a huge part of that turn.
And I love Chris Finch, but they were going to unlock Rudy Gobert. That never happened, and that was really dumb. I love Dane McDaniels. I don't think he's the barometer of the offense. I think Mike Conley is the barometer of the offense because when he is out there, there is just the S-word structure. And he plays a really big role, and Rob's obviously out sideline with his ankle injury. Dante and Nikhil are giving you great minutes, but again, they just get sped up, and that's something that Rob doesn't do. I know we're approaching an hour, but I think there's one other topic that I wanted to flow it to you because it was all sunshine out there in the Bay for you, 4-game winning streak. But the performance you got against the Clippers from Julius Randle, you got a little bit of that in that first half. I don't know if you have I know you have remotes, Dane, but I don't know if you've ever had a remote where all of a sudden the buttons they don't work. It's because the batteries are running low. I don't know what the fuck happened to Julius Randle in the second half. Shout out to Chris Finch because he gave him a real short leash, 8 minutes. That's how Nas got to go in there and have such a dominant, second half. But that second half was, it wasn't all positives last night. And again, maybe it's just a second half thing. Maybe it's just, a weird stint. But those Julius Randle minutes, I know from the fan base, from the people watching, people attending, they drive them crazy because, he misses that layup in transition to start the third. Then he just, again, the remote, he just freezes and he doesn't go get that rebound. Then he's not engaged on defense.
It's weird. Yeah.
It's weird, man. And I think he's getting better. And you saw him playmaking and just I know you love this, when he draws two, he almost is always going to draw a real, what did we say, double team? He gets an actual double team in the post, not showing two. And when he gets doubled, it's almost free money for anyone else on the team because he's going to find the right guy. But when he has those stints, I understand why people are like, when's the trade deadline? Because it drives you crazy because of all the good stuff we're talking about. That is just eye-poppingly bad. And they have to find ways to eliminate that because this team should have been up 20 for most of the game, and it got way too close in the third against the opposite of the death lineup, by the way. The Warriors played 5 guys. I didn't know who they were. But you just got to have Julius Randle eliminate that. He has to continue to buy in because that can sink you. Maybe not in December against a team on the second night of a back-to-back, but you get an 8-minute stint like that from Julius in a playoff game, you're losing that game.
So these are just I have Julius Randle in my notes and bullet points below it, and this is the progression through the game. No, and so I say this. I say this because it started positive. I go, the Reid Randle front court was effective. Huge second quarter stretch, best it's looked. That's what I said. Then my next bullet point in the third quarter was start to third quarter was awful. Next bullet point, has no right hand. Next bullet point, Finch gives him bandwidth to get back on track. Quote, Leah report, which I thought was good. Leah B. Olson in the middle of the game said Finch challenged Randle in the huddle, or not challenged, said we really need we really need you right now, Julius, to him, and left him out there, gave him the bandwidth. That's what I'm saying, to continue to play through that. And Finch gives Julius sometimes too much, or in the same way that he did with Carl, where it feels like the bandwidth is connected to like protecting the emotion a little bit. But Julius did not step on that opportunity and capitalize on the bandwidth there. And to Finch's credit, he took Julius out. Julius only played 8 minutes in the second half of this game. And Nas came in, who was defending the rim, as we've talked about, playing with that 0.5 mentality, and fit into the team in the ways that Randle does not. Like when Randle is out there, he just absorbs so much of everything. And sometimes they need, as Carl did a good job of last year, sometimes they need the number 2 guy to get out of the way and play through the flow and play through Ant. And Julius Randle did not do that last night. Really struggled. It's good that you bring it up, and I know we're tucking it in here at the end of the hour, but if they lose that game somehow,
that's where we start.
That's where we start. So yeah, it's good call by you.
And Julius Randle is 3rd on the team this year in minutes per game, and 6 guys last night played more than him. I was texting Jake Painting throughout, but we just kind of side bet of is Finch going to go back to him, right? That bandwidth, like, maybe he's punishing him for a little bit for the 3rd, the 4th, but he's going to go back to him because Finch. One of the things I don't always love is that he does kind of always or almost always close with the starters, which I totally disagree with. But he didn't. To his credit, to Finch's credit, he said, nope, it's going to be Nas and it's going to be Rudy and a combination of guards around him. And again, yes, we're kind of tucking this in because there's a lot of good, fun stuff to talk about and mostly about Ant and this defense, and that's been the theme of this. But they have to – I think those Julius situations are becoming a little less and less, which is good because it's December and we might have 6 more months of this, peaks and valleys, but they have to eliminate it by the time that it comes playoff time, because those, to your point, this whole podcast starts with Julius Randle today. If they blow that game, and I don't really have a diagnosis, man. I don't really know.
Yeah.
Put new batteries in the remote, make the fucking power button work.
Yeah, I'm not worried about the diagnosis. I'm worried about the treatment, of how this works.
I don't know why it happens though. You know what I mean? That was my diagnosis. Why is it happening? The treatment thing last night, Finch was 8 minutes. That's it. But
why? Yeah.
No, we're X's and O's. You go.
No. I'm agreeing with you. Why it happens is based on his belief of what he can do and wanting to try and do these things and the effectiveness of those things. But for the people who are really frustrated with Julius Randle thus far this season, what is their treatment to the problem? What does Britt say all the time? Have him come off the bench, start Nas, right? Mm-hmm. I think we're getting to the point, and last night is the example of the compromise there, or this not a step towards that, but the compromise, which is this team's got 8 quote unquote starters who can really play. They got another couple guys that are scraping at the back end of that rotation that are wanting to do more and play more. And I think we can reasonably assume that Minot or Dillingham would be relatively helpful 9th men in the context of being a 9th man. That they don't have to give Julius Randle the bandwidth all the time. You can continue to start him over and over and over again. But if it's rough, the first 5-6 minutes are rough. Finch has a couple of decision points, right? There's a first sub of the game, every single game. Well, in the first quarter and the third quarter, right? Mike Conley subs out 6 minutes into the game, and one of the big subs out with him. And sometimes it's Gobert, and Conley and Gobert go off together, and they come back in together at the start of the second quarter, and sometimes it's Conley and Randle. Well, it can be Randle every time. You can send those guys out there, and you're gonna know. And sometimes Julius is rolling, and you gotta fuel that and let it go. Let him play there, but cut it to the 6, And in the second stint, it doesn't need to be okay, he only played 6 here in his first stint here. He doesn't need to play 12 here. He can play 12 here if he's doing the things, but you could continue to trim and trim and trim that based on what his production is or based on what he's giving you. And last night Finch did that. I'm curious to know. I think he would have given him the Carl, when Carl was having a bad game and Carl would be kind of sitting in the fourth quarter, Finch would put Carl back in with 3 minutes left in the game, kind of, and it was like, okay, probably gonna win here, but let's put Carl in so it isn't like the Carl sat in the fourth quarter sort of thing. I said that to John when I was sitting next to him. I'm like, I bet you Julius gets back in with like 3 minutes left in the game. Keep things peaceful, whatever. We're like, yeah. And then Kirk cleared his bench, and then it was like, okay, well, I can bring Randle back in there. I'm really curious though if Randle would have came back in to close there, if it would have been a little bit closer, or if the Warriors wouldn't have waved the white flag. But point being is like, it's okay if Julius Randle plays 24 minutes in some games or 26 minutes in some games, because you have Naz Reid who can, if he's playing well, boost him up, whatever. There's other ways to fill in for those Julius Randle minutes if you need.
This is it. We can wrap it up, but you have bullet points. You have notes. I had a couple. I texted you this one. Why does Nikhil shoot technical free throws?
Oh, God.
Nikhil, I love you. But he was out there with Ant and Dante. I would love for that to not be a thing. It's been like a weird random trend all year.
2 years. Last year, too. I don't even know if you can look. Somebody like hit me up, said DM comment, whatever, like this. If you could figure out technical free throws, what Nikhil has shot on them in his career in the Timberwolves, because my guess is 3 for 7. That's what I think Nikhil Alexander-Walker is shooting on technical free throws. It makes no sense. Yeah,
I will buy you unlimited beers at Falling Knife if someone can actually say that. How many has he shot technical free throws, and how many has he made? And then the second one, this is just a fun stat to kind of close it up. This is really about the defense, but this is also about having a star and having role players or secondary stars around him. Do you know what Golden State's offensive rating was last night with Steph Curry on the bench?
Yeah, I saw Jay's tweet. It was like 50 or something like that.
32.1.
So that's 0.3 points per possession.
I said, listen, I'm not going to fake it like I'm Mr. I understand everything about advanced stats. I know that number because when we talk about offensive rating and defensive rating, they're usually near 100. That's tough, man. And again, not to shit on the best lacrosse player of all time, but I'm just happy that this team is really deep, because if a guy rolls an ankle, or obviously like Rob did, like you just have so many other options. And when Wiggin goes out last night, all of a sudden this team was like, we don't have a lot of other options. So good job,
Wiggins and Moody. Yeah.
And it does line up. Ant told everyone to go home last night. Most of the 49ers players are sitting courtside, but I love these 2-game sets, right? Like the Portland one, I think was the last one, because that was about as bad as it gets. You get a day off in between this one, enjoy the sunshine, but that Warriors team,
they're
coming.
Man.
The Warriors team is coming though on Sunday. Like they're not gonna love what happened, and I'm sure Kerr will have them ready. So really good start to this little road trip. It'll be interesting to see if they can continue and extend this winning streak to 5 on Sunday against Golden State, and you'll be there, so we'll be listening.
Let's wrap this up with prize picks, Kyle. Kyle and I on the Friday show every week, we take a look at the Sunday slate of NFL games and put together a prize picks lineup. What was standing out to you?
Well, I mean, what stood out to me was right in front of the screen, Saquon Barkley rushing number is more or less than 111.5.
Rushing, I know.
That's crazy. I do think if you are a prize pick user, there is a kind of a free square with Patrick Mahomes. Basically, he has to get over 0.5 passing yards. The free square, you add that with something right here. Makes it easy money.
That was going to be mine.
I did like I did like Saquon Barkley over 0.5 touchdowns. It's like a green demon or whatever.
Can we do that? Can we do less than 111?
You can't do multiple Saquons, but I do like that one. And then Mike Evans against the Raiders at home, 71.5 receiving yards. Mike Evans, if you don't follow, has basically been 1,000 yards every year. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame. He needs to finish strong these next 4 weeks to get to 1,000 yards. So I have him going for 100 against a really bad Raiders secondary. So give me Barkley to score a touchdown against the feisty Carolina Panthers, and Mike Evans more than 71.5 receiving yards.
So this is a good example, right? Of so you can use this Mahomes free square. So Mahomes passes for a yard, Barkley gets a touchdown, and Mike Evans gets 72 receiving yards. If you were to put 20 on that, you would win 80 if that hits.
4-1.
So that's another good example of how prize picks works. I was looking at my account. I hit one of my season long. I had Josh Jacobs and Josh Jacobs and Joe Mixon more than their season-long rushing totals. So I was like, oh, okay. I forgot I made some of those. They actually have those like going constantly. I think they have them for NBA too. But anyways, put together your Prize Picks lineup on Sunday. Make sure you get that Mahomes free square in there. There really is. If you are a Prize Pick user, you just kind of want to like check it every day. Check if there's some promotions because there's literally like yesterday we talked about the Friday. There's these like protected plays. If you're a Prize Picks player, like you should do that every single time. It's for $35. Like even just do like a two player lineup for 35 because if you miss it, that 35 is getting credited right back to your account. It's a fun way to do it, and particularly I think if your fantasy season has come to a close, as I'm feeling like both of mine are getting. Dude, I had Derrick Henry, Joe Mixon, and Christian McCaffrey in that league I'm in with Michael and those guys, and I traded away because Mixon had the bye. I traded away Mixon for Justin Jefferson last week. So I'm like, okay, get off of the bye. And now this week, I've had those sick running backs all year, Henry, Mixon, and McCaffrey. And now this week, I have none. I have none. My starting running backs are Kenneth Gainwell and Jalen Wright. It's so sad.
It's always a reminder, right? Like the NBA season is a marathon. So is football and fantasy season. We spend all this time in August, and I'm not hanging out with my wife because I'm reading these things, listening to these podcasts, and then it's like all of a sudden week 14, and I have Isaac Guerrero and Braylon Allen and a player named Sincere
that's
starting at running back.
I wish I could start Sincere McCormack. Oh man.
Okay, well, call them.
Would that not be better than Kenneth Gainwell and Jalen Wright? It's so bad. It's so bad. Anyways,
good week of pods. I was on vacation again, like I said, for the 9th time, but I thought the pod you did with Jace to kind of recap you not being around was really good. And then the Brit stuff, as always, was really good. And then yesterday with Chris, no one kind of knows Ant better than Chris Hine right now. So the pods continue to flow. The vibes are back. I know we have a busy week coming up this next week too. So appreciate everyone.
Opposite. Dude, next week is dead. I mean, like, we'll still be doing pods.
That's what I meant. What really matters, the content.
Yeah. I should kind of fill people. So I'm flying back from San Francisco on Monday morning after the game, so there will not be a pod on Monday. But Jason and I are going to go on Tuesday this week. We'll do that, but I don't think they play again until Friday again at home against the Lakers. So we'll get in a couple episodes, and we'll have Kyle back at some point next week too. I might bug you to do Saturday again if that's possible. Sorry, I know we hate that.
Yep.
But yes, thank you for coming back. Are you doing Flagrant Howls with Phil this week?
I think so. Yeah, I'm more focused on I got to get to wreath making out in wine country today. So appreciate you as always. Yeah, we'll do another pod next week.
All right, he's Kyle Theige. You can follow him on Twitter at Kyle Theige. I'm Dane at DaneMooreMBA. Until Tuesday with Chase. He's Kyle. I'm Dane. Peace out.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Green and hot so you can find me in the crowd.